If you are at the bleeding edge of classic gaming, then you've heard of MiSTer, the open-source FPGA-based emulation platform based on the fundamental goal of hardware accuracy. MiSTer already has tons of cores spanning 8 to 32-bit consoles, home computers, arcade games, and more. In this series, I'll feature one FPGA core every day for the next 21 days to ring in the new year. Here it is, the legendary Donkey Kong Arcade. Brought right into your house, care of MiSTer. The Donkey Kong core actually has an interesting and deep history, and it predates MIST and MiSTer significantly. It was originally coded in Verilog HDL by Katsumi Degawa in 2004, and later translated to VHDL by Alex for the FPGA-based Papilio Plus board. It uses a T80 soft core by Daniel Wallner and a T48 by Arnim Lager. Sorgelig, the person behind the MiSTer project, ported it as one of the first arcade cores for MiSTer. Since then, it has undergone major revisions and is now running on the latest and greatest scalar and arcade backend, care of the tireless work by master FPGA coder Alan Steremberg, who's usually working full-time behind the scenes improving arcade cores and porting new ones over from other platforms. Alan is one of the unsung heroes of MiSTer, and his fingerprint is there in pretty much every arcade core. Without him, they'd probably all still be running on the really old scalar, and they just wouldn't look as good or have all of these great new features that have come in. And because of his work, the Donkey Kong core supports HDMI scaling and screen rotation, vertical or cocktail cabinet mode, and just like a real arcade PCB, you have full access to the dip switches to control the number of credits per coin, the bonus progression, and it has a really great controller fix that disables diagonal directions. This is vital if you're going to play with a modern controller. Donkey Kong and a lot of these classic arcade games used 4-way gated joysticks, which never allowed for 2 directions to be pressed at the same time, like with modern controllers, which seem to have 4-way D-pads, but they're actually 8-way directional. And those diagonals cause gameplay issues in games that were hard-coded for 4 directions. And it will do away with the problems that diagonals pose and allow you to use any 8-way directional pad, exactly as if it were a 4-way essentially. Nothing really though feels exactly the same as those 4-way gated leaf spring joysticks, which you're free to use with MiSTer, and many classic gamers do. Just like with all of the other MiSTer cores, the scalar allows you to play filters by Sultan G42, with dozens of scanline options including vertical or horizontal scanlines depending on which screen orientation you choose. Or if you want to bypass the scalar, you can feed analog RGB video direct to a CRT. It's as easy as getting a cheap direct video dongle or an I/O board add-on. Of course, it will be vertically oriented since the scalar is bypassed for that zero lag video, exactly as if it were a real arcade PCB. You need a rotated monitor. Screen rotation either requires going HDMI or attaching the scalar to the analog video output in your INI file, which is great for 480p and higher devices like VGA monitors or BVMs. Most people will prefer HDMI for this one though, I think. Although it's the perfect excuse to get one more PVM to dedicate to vertical games like I did, your spouse will love it. And, just like you can swap out the physical EEPROMs on a real arcade PCB, you can flash alternative ROMs in MiSTer to change the region or revision, or to use some of the interesting hacks, including the incredible Donkey Kong Foundry edition, which has a new stage and other features. The hair-raising Spooky edition, rated strong R for graphic violence. The titillating XXX rated Naked Kong, which is so crudely obscene that I can't even show it to you. Oops. The cute Christmas Kong works, but only the first stage. Maybe it's a bad ROM dump I have or something. There's the colorful and aptly named Rainbow Edition, where you can show your pride. I really like this one. And there's my favorite hack, Atari 2600 Kong, which reminds you just how great the real Donkey Kong is. Anyways, I'm not gonna wax philosophically about Donkey Kong. It's a great game. It's horribly addictive, not too hard to jump into, but infinitely challenging. Easy to learn, hard to master. If all you ever knew was some home port, The arcade game is the one they all bow down to, and our Donkey Kong core is timed perfectly with the real arcade game. Pair that with MiSter's zero latency or LL API devices, and you would have the perfect setup for practicing on for competitive gaming. How long will it be until a new MiSter user shows up on the charts at Twin Galaxies? Probably not too long once the word gets out. You simply can't play a Golden Age arcade game with any lag whatsoever, whether it's input lag or video lag. They will destroy what little chance you had. MiSter essentially has neither. Even with a USB controller, the pulling rate is so fast now that lag is essentially a non-issue. But if you are really serious, grab an LL device and go all the way. Even the HDMI video scaler has been tested by RetroRGB to introduce only a few lines of lag. That's lines, not frames. That's insanely fast, and in human terms, it's instant. It's way beyond the capabilities of MAME or other home ports at least, and it's the next best thing to owning the PCB. But for people like me, it's way better than owning the PCB because of all these great features. So a huge thank you to Alan Steremberg for his continued work on these original MiSter cores. They've been utterly transformed through his efforts and play like new. If you love Golden Age arcade games, you'll love MiSter. It has loads of them already and gets more weekly now, it seems. So that concludes my look at the venerable Donkey Kong. What core will be next? Find out tomorrow in my next video. This video represents a snapshot of the core as it exists today, but by the time you're watching this in the future, it may have been improved or expanded with new features. Hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the latest MiSter happenings, and ring the bell to be notified when I go live for a stream. If you like the channel, consider supporting it. Patreon support at any level gets you an instant invite to the SmokeMonster Elite Discord and early access to my videos. Thank you so much for your support, I really appreciate it.